then we're talking about the overall impact. And so I think that's important to mention. Academic integrity. I just was in a meeting today where a teacher was speaking about something that he has seen in his classroom. And that is students recording answers to tests and quizzes, and then sharing those recordings. So students that walk around with earbuds in are actually listening to what the answers to the test are while they're taking the test. And that was just the meeting I was in today. Obviously, almost all phones nowadays have cameras, so we can take pictures of tests and we can share them in an instant with as many people as you would like to share them with. And then finally, the financial impact. I won't get into too much of the nuts and bolts of that, but just what I would like to say is the amount of time our teachers spend addressing phones, the amount of time those teachers that are addressing the phones turn into referrals, turn into time that we as administrators are then meeting with kids, pulling them out of class, addressing the cell phone issue, and then whatever consequence goes with. I mean, that is time that could be better spent in other ways, building up our students, building up our teachers, and improving our academic process. And so I think we can't really put a number on that, but we did our best to look at time, cost, and effectiveness, and it is an impact, and it's a negative impact in our district and in our building.
So of course, over the next few days, we'll be able to get feedback from the community, the board members, and various stakeholders. But the stakeholder that spends the most time with our students are our teachers. So it was important to get some feedback from them. So we sent out a survey and got some information from our teachers, and they will hopefully be able to speak to the community on Monday. So one of the questions that we asked the teachers were, would you like to have a cell phone-free environment in the school? And you can see overwhelmingly that the majority of the teachers said yes. And this goes to speak on all of the things that Mr. Greenidge talked about the distractions in the classroom, about the academic dishonesty and plagiarism. Those are big factors which proved their answers to be yes. Another question that was asked was, on average, how many times per class period do you address cell phones on a given day? And on a given day, between 3 to 10 times, the majority of the teachers said. So that's a lot of time that the teachers have to ask students to put their cell phones away because they're looking at text messages, they're looking at social media, they might even pick up a cell phone call. So these are distractions that, of course, are affecting the learning time in the classroom. How much time do you spend dealing with issues related to cell phones daily? Again, this tells you how much time the teachers are addressing cell phones in the classroom, with more than half of the time, over 5 minutes, that the teachers are addressing or dealing with cell phone issues. And then, of course, the final survey question that we thought was important to share was how problematic are cell phones in the classroom? And on a scale of 0 to 5, you can see that the majority of the teachers have said that it's between 4 and 5. So we can see that it is causing a big distraction in the classroom. And again, our biggest concern is just to try to level the playing field with our students. We already know that our students are at a disadvantage because of various outside factors, but what can we control to help them be on a better playing field so that we can continue to see growth in our students academically? That's what we're truly asking for.
So again, telling a student to put the phone away is not working. Our teachers are doing that. Again, I was in an observation today where a teacher told 3 different students throughout that period, put their phones away. And in one case, it actually came back out 2 more times in the observation I did just today. Our students, they have impulse control. They lack the, I don't want to say lack, in many cases. I don't want to speak that broadly. In many cases, our students don't have the discipline to sit in a classroom environment without their cell phones and without looking at it, checking it every time it dings, buzzes, or blinks. And so we learned during the pandemic in our own experiences. And most of us were doing meetings online all the time. And we keep our phone next to our computer. And anytime it went off, we would check it and we would check out of that meeting or whatever experience we were online at the time. Our kids are doing the same thing. The difference being that we're already establishing our careers. We've already made those choices about where we're going. Our kids have not yet gotten that experience yet, right? So they're really limiting their opportunities by not fully exploring the academic process. And I think that, you know, what we want to do is we want to make sure that we're collaborative in that we involve everybody in this conversation so that we can come together and find a solution. What that solution looks like, I don't think anybody knows at this point. But what I can say, and the data shows, is that what we're doing right now is not as effective as it could be. So I think anything we can do along those lines will help us help our kids.
So, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
To reemphasize, Monday, at what time?
6:12.
6 o'clock PM Monday in the cafeteria at the high school. All parents are welcome to join and engage in more meaningful conversation about this discussion. Thank you.
2.2, we are going to have a little discussion regarding, public comment. Mike, you wanted to have that?
Yeah, what do we want to do with that? We used to have it at the end of the meeting, then it got moved to the beginning of the meeting, and now we're not having it at the end of the meeting. And we still have registered speakers at the beginning of the meeting. So this, we've been going back and forth on this for a bit, and I just wanted to bring resolution to it, to say, what do we want to do with it? So just throwing it out there for discussion.
Now, we did extend the registered speaking public comment time from 2 minutes to 3 minutes. Last month was the first time that went into practice, so the board recently did make that change.
So
I also shared with, the policy committee, myself, Ms. Griffin, Ms. Arthurell, the response from the, Public School Board, Association on their what they think we should do. I would like to share that with the rest of the board, and maybe we can extend that conversation beyond tonight, so that we can come to a conclusion on what we want to do. Because basically it can be at any part of the meeting. I've heard different opinions about where the public comment should be placed. At the end, seems like after we voted on an issue, seems like it's redundant because we voted on it, but that's just what I've heard. And so and I know we're not making a decision tonight, but I will share that email back from the School Board Association. And then we can take it from there. Laura or Terry, would you like to comment on anything that I shared?
I'm not gonna comment, I'm gonna kind of like let the board, talk about it,
And I meant to say, but
You forget me all the time.
I put it,
so I know, I'm so sorry. But
I already put it out there to a few board members, how I personally feel about it, I personally, I'm gonna share with everybody, when it first was introduced, I didn't agree with the way it was introduced, okay? So I'll put that out there. I didn't like the way it was just not really spoken of. So moving forward, I asked the question, why was this change made in the way we have our registered speakers and public comment? Me and Mike have shared this discussion too. And once it was explained to me, it made sense. If I'm gonna hear someone out, or I want to input on a decision that I'm gonna make, I want to hear from the public first. I want you to get in front of me. This is just me speaking as a board member, right? I don't want you to wait, and I wouldn't want to wait to speak to somebody after they made a decision regarding my child, my money, my child's future. What good is it after that? Nothing. At least when the public gets before us and they say up front, hey, this is how I feel about what you're about to vote on. They have the opportunity to change the mind of a board member, just give the board member a different view to look at. Just like in any game, you can't play good defense from behind. That's just it. So I'm gonna leave this to the board, to make their final decision. And as far as registered speakers and public, getting up, who wants to wait till the end of the meeting? I'm sure you have other things to do. Some of the parents decide to sit online or sit in the meeting till the end. You come in here to address your concerns to us. We're here. I don't think you should have to wait till the end to do that. So that's just my take on it. I'm gonna leave it up to the board, to make your own decisions, and, we'll bring it to the table and discussion.
I will, first of all, if you want to bring up policy under your tabs here under our policy manual, it's under local board procedures, item 006, meetings. The order of business is established and has been for a long time that the public comments were at the end, and the only time you got to speak was if you were a registered speaker. And it was, in my opinion, a good thing to add public comments at the beginning also for topics that we were about to vote on. Because that does make sense for people to speak to the board on something they're about to vote on. And it was difficult to sit and wait till the end of the meeting to have your opinion heard. On the other hand, you got to learn how the board worked if you sat through an entire meeting, because a lot of people don't understand how a public school board works. And it is something that you have to know. So I will go with whatever the board goes with. My personal feeling is that people should be encouraged, and during public comments, if they are at the beginning of the meeting, they should speak to something that we're going to vote on and save other topics for the end of the meeting, so that we will hear what they have to say. And then if there's something new they want to bring up, because I myself would bring up new things at board meetings, and save that for the end of the meeting, so we'll be heard. But whatever the whole board decides, I think, and by the way, if you are looking at that item I brought you, order of business, that's what we're supposed to do. Public comments, item 18 at the end, unless altered by the president, which is what happened previously. So that was okay, or by a majority of those present and voting. So we can at any time, by the way, if there was a crowd of people here that wanted to have their voices heard, we could say, we want to hear you now. And that has been done. So whatever we do, and getting, in our opinion, the 3 minutes was necessary because people, it's very hard to get everything you want to say in 2 minutes. So giving people a little more time, and honestly, it keeps tensions down because you get to say what you want to say. And so that's my thought, is if we have both at the beginning, at the end, to try to encourage people, again, speak to what we're voting on before we vote. And then if you have something new, bring it up after we vote. My thought.
Well, following up on your point, that registered speakers was people speak on the agenda, and then at the end of the meeting, public comment, do that. So if we're gonna have public comment at the beginning, maybe we can do away with registered speakers and just say, folks, speak on what's on the agenda.
I'm fine with that.
Public comment.
Yeah,
Public company.
if we're asking people to use the sheet of paper that Ms. Carnes has been having at the podium for public comment, then those people can fill that out with the agenda item that they want to speak on, if they want to have a record of that, or if we need to have some other way of organizing it or anything like that. But yeah, I think that that's a pretty reasonable solution, to do away with the registered speakers. Unless, so are there, for registered, this is something I haven't understood. For public comment, the person needs to be a resident of the school district, right? If you're a registered
Well,
speaker,
no,
that
clarify.
also.
There's a list.
If they have an interest, some type of business interest in the district,
Okay,
if they're a parent that maybe doesn't live in the district,
okay.
there's a lot of other reasons why board can allow them to speak. And honestly, if anybody really wants to come and speak on anything, if the board wants to give them permission to speak, they can. Registered speakers, we do say you have to be a resident, all right?
Okay.
But to clarify the difference, and I think Mike said it, I might be repeating it, but the registered speakers had to be registered 24 hours in advance, and it was what agenda items are you gonna speak on? And public comment at the end was just, hey, you're entitled to free speech, anything you wanna bring up. And that's the way it was initially, and then they moved it up behind registered speakers, because sometimes people would then, they would say, hey, I didn't make the 24-hour time frame, but I'm here and I wanna say something. And so then the board said, okay, well, we want to let them have their comments on the agenda items before we vote.
Okay, I'm gonna pull my own chain here. In 2010, I registered to speak at a board meeting. And I came in with data and flip cards on numbers because of the library. Because the library was in need of renovation. If you've seen what it is right now, it was nothing like that. We had curtains that were from the 1960s. We had a fan that didn't work. It was terrible, and I was flipping cards. And they let me go over my allotted 3 minutes, and that's how we got that library. I did that. You're welcome. Okay, but I registered to speak on a subject that was not on the agenda. And so some people might want to come in and speak to something that's urgent and important. We've had, other things that could come up. So yes, registered speakers are important for people that are going to bring something new to the table. Because the 9 of us, and plus our administration, we don't have all the ideas. So yeah, I believe we should have registered speakers for those important things, but for people who want to speak to issues, that is maybe a thought. And if you want to see my data, it's posted in the library.
Put that video up from. Google.
So I will say, I appreciate Ms. Lyons for doing the legwork, because that made me want to research, what do other school districts do? And some school districts actually have public comment after every single section, and some have it beginning and the end, and I think our issue or our concern seems to be coming from the public is they speak in the beginning, we vote on something, they may not appreciate it, and then they don't have that chance to voice it again. Then they'll start to send emails, so it's kind of like, how do we bridge the gap to make sure what they want to say is being conveyed when we vote on things, that we don't leave this building to a 5-page email on something they could have spoken upon to our faces. But again, some districts do it different, beginning and the end, registered speakers, and some do public comment after everything. Once the vote's called, they call the public comment. It kind of make things move
So,
faster.
with that being said, am I correct that the agenda goes out, correct, and it's to the public, if we're following that order?
Yeah.
And everyone has access to that to review. If there are concerns, review it, and then that gives you the opportunity to prepare yourself to speak at the board, in front of the board, correct? So do we need more time to give them to review it? Because maybe somebody would say, well, I'm not, I can't read it over the weekend, I'm working or I'm away. Thinking on those terms, do we need the agenda to be ready sooner? Like, I don't want to put the pressure on you guys, but do we need to? So that everybody gets the opportunity to say what they need to say. And, we did extend it to 3 minutes. What else do we need? So that's why I think we need to talk about this some more, because the answers are not, I don't believe we'll have the answers right today. So maybe that's something we need to do, make the agenda sooner.
What do you think?
I do believe that it would be nice to have those that just want to give comments at the beginning before we vote, so that we can hear their perspective and be able to have make a more informed decision. I don't think it's fair to have them speak at the end after we made our vote. I do agree that I remember, and I'm gonna pull my chain, I remember my daughter was at the academy, and it was a big thing, love the academy school. We had a school board meeting, and I did register and to speak, and I was able to speak. And then the decision was made. And the decision, not just myself, but other parents spoke. And I think that it was so important for them to hear us out as the parent, right? Because their decision was going to impact our children, right? So it was so important for them to hear us out first and then vote. So I do believe that they should be able to make their comments before the meeting. But I do like the fact that and even Sarah said that maybe whenever they sign up their name, maybe kind of make sure that the topic that they're speaking of is relevant, what's on the agenda, and then maybe at the end, they can bring comments up, things that wasn't on the agenda. I kind of like that too.
I brought that sheet back from the PSBA that where people sign up, because here's the reason. Because you could just come up and give any old address and say you live in the district and not be in the district and say something. So we need to have your address. But people, it's 2024. People don't want to put their address out in public. So if you write it down, who you are, what your relationship is, and it's not just living in the district, it's having a connection to the district, it's doing business with the district. There's a list of about 5 things that you should be able to speak to us. And so we know that beforehand, but people don't have to broadcast their news. But yes, adding a little blurb about what you want to talk about is probably a great idea. Just in terms of sorting them out so that all the speakers on a certain topic could speak together if they wanted to, or that, but to give voice, people want to be heard.
Marnika, what do you think?
I think we should have it at the beginning and the end of the meeting. And I think that we should get this on the agenda for next week. For the consensus, and just go along with it, because I don't want to keep kicking the can down the road. We all pretty much know what we want to do.
Okay. All right, so that wraps that up, and we'll move forward with that.
So before the board ends this discussion, just because you're going to continue this and give some direction with Ms. Lawson, who will then tell me how the agenda should look. The public comment section used to say at the end, in person only. So there was public comment, open online in person, and then at the end it would say in person only. The board could do whatever they want. I just want to clarify that that was how we want to address that moving forward, that's all.
It should be just, both. It should just say public comment, and people on Zoom or in public should be able to speak at the beginning of the meeting and the end.
So then both of us would require us changing our policy.
Yeah.
We'd have to change the policy to include having it at the beginning and the end and allowing for electronic communication. Because we also do have a policy about electronic meetings.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that'd be a best interest, if there's an event today, and whether there's a parent at the, and they want to make a comment, they might be online, but if we don't allow that to happen, you know, things like that do happen.
And that's why I was thinking maybe getting the agenda, I'll just a little bit on later on, just so that people can treat it life as life, life.
Well, I guess that's an important point, Ms. Lyons. When it's posted agenda Friday at 4, the public can ask questions. As soon as it's live and they view, they can ask questions about anything on that agenda to any of us. You don't have to wait till Wednesday night, you know what I'm saying? Obviously, Wednesday night's for you to voice your concern publicly, for everyone to hear your stance, you know, maybe collectively as a group, several people want to say things, but you can always ask questions, you know, they don't have to wait till Wednesday.
Can I say something? Just to be, I'm sorry I was late. So if this was already addressed, I apologize. Is there gonna be public comment periods during this meeting? Is that gonna be happening? Because it would be nice to, instead of just talking about what we are gonna allow for public comment, to maybe ask people that are here and like to comment, how they feel about this subject.
Well, we do have public comment and questions at the end.
Okay, and so is that just email questions?
No, anybody in the.
Okay, well, it was very unclear.
I tried to email this to you and I did not. As I presented the original proposal to the previous board, it was email comments only because there was desire by the previous board that having lots of public comment was not productive to the committee, whatever. We were at an impasse over everything, so I presented my proposal, which said email comments, and it had worked up until now, and we have not officially changed that yet. We adopted what I proposed and have been doing that. We have not made an official change on it, and we cannot really make an official change on that right now because committee meetings don't make policy, can't vote on anything.
But I thought the last meeting
So
was often kind
Oh, you did?
So, yeah,
Yeah.
so this is.
She can.
Yeah.
So this is what I wanted to say. At the last meeting, I let it be clear that if you're in the room, you can speak. You know, I wouldn't have someone said, come here, sit here for, however long we're here, and then tell them at the end, no, you can't voice your opinion on something that you sat and listened in on. So, yeah, I did make that, you know, that adjustment. So if you're in the room and you want to speak at the end, Been stated. Okay,
But we still are taking email comments at.
yes, yes, indeed.
At any time in the meeting.
Okay, well, we really need to make sure that that's very clear. When we send out announcements that there's a meeting.
Remember when we were in kindergarten and they taught us the telephone game? Social
Yes.
media operates like that. If you watch it, goes from this person to that person. By the time it gets from that end to that end, it's vastly different than how it started out. That's why they taught us that game.
I've tried to get this clarified a couple of times.
I said it last week.
I know, and I appreciate that. I guess what I did not have clear was whether there would be questions taken from people participating by Zoom, but then when the item was finally put on the website calendar today, it said specifically email your questions and said nothing about if you are in the room, you may participate. And I asked for clarification and so I'm glad that we have it now.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, great. Let's go. We're moving on to discussions regarding chain of command. So Mike wanted that on the agenda. We wanted to talk about the chain of command here. I'm gonna pass this around.
Hang on, Harry Morgan.
Yeah.
Like Tim.
Terry, thank you. My concern has been the titles of the positions were different than what our actual titles of our administrative team were. Now there's a consistency. So when you're reading this, you can put the person's name as a position. Before there was some ambiguity. So thank you. This looks good to me.
So this is the
Yeah, this
updated
is the
one?
original document.
There was a probably, I think you took this as a draft from another school.
I took it off of Norwin's website. This is actually what.
Norman would like to give you credit. Thank you, Norman. So I think initially, the first one that she gave us did have different titles, but before we published it, Ms. Monroe did change it to our names, but that's okay. I mean, as it looks here, Mr. Vaughn, you go with this?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's good.
I don't want to be the problem all the time, but, like, there's a few that say assistant to the superintendent, and there are 3, so if we could have clarity on which of those. Like on matters involving athletics, on matters involving activities. The number 4 is, and also matters involving discipline and curriculum. Number 3 is assistant to the superintendent, but we have assistant to the superintendent for curriculum and for pupil personnel. Yes.
Yeah, so I think if you look at
Yeah.
on matters involving personnel or staff, it's defined chief of staff, assistant superintendent, chief of staff, which is Ms. Lloyd, right? The other ones collectively, Dr. White or Mr. Wilson could field those calls. We share those. Dr. White's not gonna say, hey, I'm not taking this call, you better call Mr. Wilson. And ultimately, as a group, we're gonna discuss them, so that's probably why it's that way.
Okay.
And if they call Margaret, she's pretty good with deciphering which one of us is good, so
Okay.
typically they do call us, so.
And Margaret is the executive secretary.
Executive
Okay, executive assistant, I'm sorry, executive. I'm sorry, I'm sorry. That is outdated language. I am sorry.
So I
Any other
have a
questions?
question.
Oh, go ahead, sir.
Of course, I know the IT department is tired of me saying this, but this is where it comes back to the contact information being on the website. So for instance, if I look at matters involving food services, that's contact kitchen manager, there is nowhere on our website that says who that is, how to find them, or anything. Then it says the supervisor transportation and food services, again, that's nowhere on our website, who that is, how do I find them? So it's that case, the first person I would go to is the principal, because I can find that on.
John, is there not a page for the cafeteria?
I'm pulling it up
I
now.
was gonna say, yeah, so there's, so like each building, if you pull up the middle school, that's all the contacts for the middle school, right? But there's a cafeteria page and there's a transportation page.
Yeah, I'm looking.
They should be under the.
Food service page, have like nutrition group, question about PEBT,
Well, that's who that is. I mean, that's Colleen works for nutrition. Technically, she doesn't work for us.
Yeah, but there's no wrong head.
Then it says Colleen.
That's the main
All right, so how do you want to change
Does
this?
it say cafe at,
It just says the nutrition group and it doesn't have a
so it
way.
doesn't have, she has a district email. So it needs to be cafe at WHS.us, yes.
Is
No,
that the only one that has that?
The same for transportation.
The other-
See,
Or
because-
no, not on
No,
transportation?
it just says a generic.
Oh, yeah,
Well, so,
okay.
yeah, bus
Does it
that.
say bus ad?
I don't know, it's not.
Transportation, give me a second.
Because that one goes to all four people in the transportation department, and that's why, because then they decipher, depending on what the issue is, who should grab that one.
But if we're at the bus stop, and we have an issue, I don't know if the best thing to do would be to send an email.
So the phone
So
number's not
it's
on
also.
It's on there, but
Yeah.
again, Donika's not gonna be the troublemaker. When I had an issue, I called, I think, for 2 hours and no one answered that time.
Yeah, I've been in that same situation.
Right, there needs to be a clear staff directory, for parents to find. Especially if we're talking about removing kids' cell phones and we're having issues, we can't get in contact with our children's teachers. So that just needs to be, I mean, and we made changes on the website all the time. I don't see why we can't do that. We just need to go ahead and move forward and do that. As a parent, like, you don't want your kid in a situation like that. Whereas,
So about this action, this item here, this chain of command, the transportation and the food service emails need to be
Front and center.
front and center, okay? Is there anything else on this chain of command that the board wants to adjust, change, anything there?
Okay, I'm getting that Mr. Belmont wants item, the first one, student discipline and instruction, and say assistant to the superintendent for curriculum and instruction.
Well, it kind of depends, because there's certain times Dr. White's gonna take that call,
Okay.
certain times, like, they'll handle that amongst themselves.
So we don't need that.
No, it doesn't
So
need to be
on
clear.
personnel staff, is it?
Personnel should go to Angel.
Should it say so chief of staff for human relations, or should it say Angel Boyd?
Well, she's the only chief of staff.
Okay,
So
so
superintendent.
they'll get that. So is there some place that says that on our website?
John, administrators, are there titles, does it say?
They are, but they're on our separate page.
Right, in
So
the
you can
individual
put it-
departments. So if I click on personnel, it pops up with.
We could create one page with all of these on, with the name
Yeah.
next to it, and
Administrators.
they are all on there, but you have to know to click and click. and click.
You don't wanna have.
So like
You
an
can create one in one index.
Like
Yeah.
an index page.
And I believe that this,
Got that?
Yeah,
I
so
believe that this is online.
I'm sorry, I know.
Huge and unreal.
I do this every week.
This is online, but it takes up a couple of screens. It needs to be condensed for parents. In fact, if they could click on it and get the name, that would be fun. You know, click on all those things and then you can just pop up the name.
I mean.
We like clicking things.
So John, do you understand what they want to change on?
Yeah, and just to clarify, so if we go under departments, do you want administrators and everybody listed there? Or under our district and then administrators? And I'll have everybody under that
We're
one.
talking about the tab on the main webpage?
I think it should be on the first tab, it says our
Our
district,
district.
click on our district, and it should be.
Administrators and then everybody.
And make sure Colleen's there, make sure transportation's there.
Yep.
Anybody that's step 3 or on this process, because teachers, there's obviously, 300 teachers. But for these people, put on the main page.
Definitely, 100%.
I know Mr. Roth keeps saying we can't have a directory,
But
but
that's not.
again, we're the only district without, I need something to be found.
No,
to
we're
do
all
that.
already on there, like all the administrators are already online.
Yes.
You mean teacher, right?
Well, yeah, teacher director. My goal is to keep the secretary from fielding a call from an upset parent or several upset parents, and we would get straight to the source.
So I will tell you this, our cybersecurity insurance company is gonna lose their mind.
I find it so hard to believe if we're the only one of 43.
We are literally the only one.
There's no reason to debate it. If the board wants to do it, you could do it. Just, it has to be a board direction because they're worried about.
We've already had once.
And they feel like they're not doing their jobs if they don't give that warning. That's all. If
I
the
think
board
we
wants to do
should. I
it,
mean, we often change healthcare. It happens. It's technology.
The government gets hacked.
They want that sounding
The
better.
government gets
But-
hacked, so.
Thinking
I
everybody else.
think we could make it work. I really, I haven't had any issues, but I mean, I think, the consensus are that we need to have something solid that we can reference to and say, that's where we need to go.
We're also trying to push people to get into power schools so that the
Yeah.
kids' stuff is concealed into one place too, because they have to, then the teacher can get on there and see and discuss and make notes. And if they're taking emails that are over here and not in the middle of power school, then that's all the more that you're asking our staff to try to condense and keep moving in their day as well. I think that
But
if
when
you're
you're
gonna
in
make
power
this
school, the
decision,
email, it goes to your personal email to send it. It's not
it
like
goes to the teacher, like that, the teacher can see it.
But you click on the
Yeah.
link, it comes up as a pop-up for you to send an email like from my Gmail. So it's not like it's a direct in Power School, it's still coming
Right,
out.
but if you do it on our system, it's gonna be direct and you're opening us up to attacks, to cyber attacks. The way that Power School is set up. John, do you wanna talk instead of me?
Yeah, that's, I know, I was about to. I was waiting for you in a second. So in Power School, if you click on it, I know what you're saying. So it's popping up and you're saying it's opening the Gmail app and sending from your Gmail.
Same as if I know my teacher's name, Miss Lyons, I can type Miss Lyons in there. That's
Correct.
Fine. You're saying that at Power School, it's doing the same thing that I would have typed Miss Lyons on my own without going, it's like it's another step.
Correct, and I think that's what she's saying, is it adds another layer of protection to where if we have every teacher email on the website, there's a high probability that we're gonna be spam attacked, somebody's gonna get out a password, whether it gets their bank account or credentials for our network. And then that's why our cybersecurity insurance is pushing back against it. And I know, looking at other websites too, I'd say it's on the low side of how many that do. But I'm the same way as Dr. Castagna, where if you guys want us to do something, we can definitely do it, but we would have to change a lot. It would come with the cost. Like, we wouldn't just be able to list it how our current website allows us. We'd most likely have to look into changing the website provider. And then what you guys probably seen, what you're talking about is you click on that teacher's name and then it embeds it. You're sending it directly to them from the website, not from your own personal Gmail.
Can I ask if you can put just one link on there and it would be a link directly to Power School? That anybody tries to get anybody, it links them directly to Power School. Can that be done? Because
Yes, and then-
Mr. Roth says people won't use Power School.
But that would only work for parents.
Yeah.
correct, parents of the district.
But I'm saying, if
Yeah.
somebody, a community member trying to get somebody they couldn't do.
Yeah, that would-
Correct.
Why
You're
can't,
correct,
if
correct.
they, okay,
Was
why
it
can't they use the phone?
Well, there's that too.
Yeah, the
No,
phone number.
The phone still works. like-
And that's-
Phone rings.
The phone works.
That's the question too, I
Phone
guess.
does work.
Is do you want random people in the community or
Yeah.
outside of the community sending emails directly to teachers? Especially whenever it's something that they're mad about where they want to go directly to the source.
That comes with just having an email address, period, even like an end phone number as well. So if the issue is insurance, then maybe we need to go to these other school districts, like a couple of us can call other school districts and find out what kind of insurance they have. We switched to that insurance and we put something on the website so that we can access our children's teacher. Because, you know, this is being, you know, discussed at every meeting and we're not getting anywhere with it. So it's not just, and phone number as well. Like we had, you know, just had a major security issue. We need to be able to get in contact with our teachers and, you know, staff in general, so.
And I know as far as the teacher's phone number wise, currently we do not allow outside calls into the classroom just for distraction purposes.
So,
So you're gonna make a link on the webpage.
Yes, all administrators.
With the chain of
everybody on
command.
so I have a question. I'm just asking, putting it out there. So you get a link and you click on it and it goes to Ms. Smith. You don't have her phone number. What are you doing? Who are you calling directly? If you could call a number directly, since you can't list their phone numbers, who would this number go to?
The office of the building that teaches that.
Okay, and what would happen? A secretary will still pick up the phone, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, take a
All right.
message or just.
so opposed to calling for 1-2-3-7-1-1500, you're gonna push it, right? And they still wanna go to that same secretary who's still gonna pick up and say the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, gotcha. 3.1, 2024-2025 budget discussion. Current department.
Where are we? Put us up there, Dawn. Do we have our friends on there?
They're on there, ready to go.
So we have 3 administrators at the Pasco conference right now, but they are joining us. That would be Brian Johnson, Danny Bridge, and Janelle Kope. Or what do I do?
Just hitting there. Yeah, sorry. That's my fault. I brought it up on my computer, but not on there.
No, my friend, I already struggled with it. Okay, how do we make it like a slideshow? Are you gonna do that?
There you go.
Oh, boy, you. Okay, so this is a preliminary budget that the entire administrative team got together. We met multiple times. I met with them individually, and then we have met as a group multiple times to discuss what the 24-25 budget looks like, what the process looks like. So we all did our slides tonight, and each administrator is going to speak to you about what their budget looks like, where it comes from, how it's developed, and what their goals are for the 24-25 school year. We're gonna start with facilities and then move to transportation, because those 3 administrators are out in Hershey, and they are at a conference that we sent them to. So I asked them to please go first, so that then we can let them go and continue on with their classes. So, okay, Brian, can you hear me? Danny? Put the chocolate bar down.
He is on. I need them here because I can't figure out how to work the AC on this. I'm trying.
We tried earlier.
Actually,
I've got it.
My guys were away.
They might-
Struggling. 78 degrees today.
He's gonna talk here in about 2 seconds.
Yes, my question.
Yes.
Okay, all right, you guys got us.
There you go.
Yep.
Hi.
We had some technical difficulties out here.
Hey, before you begin, Brian, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't hear you.
Okay, I'm trying to turn the AC on.
No, yeah.
Thermostat isn't
What's
working.
that? You're breaking up. I'm losing connection. I'll talk to you later. Yeah. So facilities budget is obviously custodial maintenance, all that. The total budget we're gonna have is approximately about 3.5 million. Obviously utilities are our gas, electric, water, things that we really can't negotiate. Repairs are, anything that comes up in the building, that's gonna make up another big chunk of that at 27%. Supplies at that 14% would be anything I get from our vendors as far as for cleaning product and paper product, things of that nature. Danny would have needs with his maintenance needs with like Home Depot and other vendors. Insurance is at 12%. That's kind of where that's at. And then, we outsource any contracted services, equipment, rentals. When we have big events, things like that, we gotta get tables and chairs. That would be that. And then miscellaneous items are things that just pop up here and there. Yeah, generators, light standards, things like that, temporary rentals. So what we did with the ESSERS money that we had there, we looked into ways that we could try to save funds from the general fund over the next 2 to 3 years. So I went out to one of our vendors, Fagan, and I bought a multi-year supply of all paper products, garbage bags, hand soap, things of that nature. And then Danny did his due diligence and he talked to Filtech.
Yeah, we went to Filtech in Homestead and ordered 4 years of air filters, so we're guaranteed to have some clean air in the classrooms, and we're saving several hundreds of thousands of dollars over the next 3 years.
It'll be about $330,000 over the next few years that will be saved. So, and then obviously capital project planning. That's obviously the things like we're talking bleachers, the improvements to Edgewood, the turf fields, the air conditioning, all that.
Flooring, yes.
And then our goals for our department are, I'm in the middle right now of doing a custodial staffing review, just to see where we're at near that baseline. If we are staffed, if we need more, if we need less, however that'll work, just to see if we are efficient in that category. And then also as a department, we are trying to move out of the fire drill department. We want to be more of an operations and maintenance.
Preventive maintenance instead of fixing things when they break all the time.
Right.
It'll be really nice if we could really work on that, especially the PM. That's it. Any questions?
Hi, guys. Are you anticipating receiving this Karen Lyons? Are you anticipating receiving any funding based off of the governor's budget proposal? Are you anticipating?
Yes.
Send some information, about what they're proposing that we as a district will receive?
Not
So would that
necessarily
tie
for
for
their
that?
department,
Okay,
yeah,
okay.
that's for in the budget as a whole, and I'll talk about that.
Yeah, she can say, so we basically are basing this budget on the governor's projection, because that's all we have, right?
Right.
Right,
And then we have to see what actually happens. Likely, we'll pass a budget before them,
yeah.
and then we have to kind of live with whatever they decide, but you can't wait for them,
No.
because we have to have a budget by July 1, they don't,
Okay, just asking.
Brian, I wasn't joking, Mr. Wilson and I have 20 years of college combined, and we can't work a thermostat.
What's that?
It's hot in here, Brian, they need the air conditioning on,
The
seriously.
air conditioning down. We'll send somebody down, see if they can mess with it.
My
Okay,
man,
thank you.
All right, no
Is
problem.
All right.
Yep.
Have a good night.
thank you.
Janelle with you?
Yeah, she's on. No, here. stay right-
Exactly.
Is Janelle, you there?
He's switching her out now.
Oh, they're switching around, okay. Hold on, Brian.
So if you see how Miss Regan outlined this, and I was in the restroom when she started, so she may have said this, but she broke down what percentage of the pie of the total budget each department is.
Oh, I did forget to tell them that, I'm sorry. So that number at the top, like right next to where it says transportation budget and it says 5.7%, that is the percentage of the entire budget that goes to transportation. And then their budget is the number underneath of that.
Is
Does
there
Coke
a
either?
red?
Yep, she's good.
Just, just make a
I'll
phone.
show you how much total budget.
Janelle?
Can you hear me?
Yep, hello. Okay, you're up, girl.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can
You're
hear
good?
you.
Okay. Transportation budget, like Jill said, 5.7% of the entire budget, which comes to about 6.5 million. Majority of our budget is just transporting students daily. As you can see, it's 82%, and that's broken down by what we spend that on. And then 5% of the budget is field trips, after schools, the IU placements where children are being placed. 8% of our budget is the gasoline and diesel for all of those vehicles. And now we have 5% going to monitors and crossing guards. How it's affecting from ESSERS, we're going back to the general fund. Some things that we are going to change because of that is the field trips are going back to pre-COVID levels, like your first grade goes here, your second grade goes here, instead of just how it is now. We also added monitors, which is an added expense this school year due to student behavior, which I'm sure you guys all noticed there's another adult on the bus. And our accomplishments for this year were we had a higher state reimbursement. That's due to the fact that we have a lot more staff now dedicated to the data and information so we can get more money back from the state. We also have a higher driver availability than we've ever had before because we added another contractor. So we now bus from 5 garages. Our goals for next year would be something we looked into is the Port Authority cards and how much we keep on site. We keep too much in the past, so we've been cutting back on that. It's saving us about $5,000 a month just from not having so much on staff. Another thing we're working on is seeing what schools we can combine, what schools we cannot combine, to combine runs to be more efficient. And we're going to have students from outside schools sign up for transportation instead of just giving that to them when they register for school. That's it.
Any questions for Ms. Kopecz?
So how many weapon contracts do we currently have? Like how many drugs are we with? Like first
We are with
price,
First Student, Price,
ATS.
ATS, PA Coach.
Do we do some?
That's PA Coach. Janelle, who's the fifth person?
Well, I think there's 5.
So first, it's two garages out of First Student.
Oh, yeah, okay. 2 First Student, 1 Price,
PA coach, ETS,
ETS, not
ETS.
ETS.
and then add a first student as well is what we use first alt.
Okay,
We used to have
first-
first student had the entire district in 2022, and they just couldn't handle it. And so we tried to have it first student all internal runs, and then Christ Transportation all external runs. Because we bus 6,000 students a day, 3,100 in-house, and then the rest all over, right? And it was just too much for the company. And so then once even Price couldn't handle all the outside runs, we found other companies that were maybe going to the same location, like ETS. They picked up a couple runs and then PA coach. So they make it work with a nice little array.
And I think her last time was having parents sign up for transportation. Is that the charter school parents sign up
Yes.
for transportation?
Yes.
Anybody outside?
anybody, the parochials in the charter schools.
But that wouldn't include the homeless children automatically.
No,
No, homeless were bound by law.
Yeah, making sure.
all right, you three, go have fun.
All right, thank you.
Brian.
Oh, Brian, are you there?
Brian, don't have fun.
Brian, don't have fun.
Everybody else have.
Everybody else have.
We're going back to security now.
Carl is coming to the chief up.
He's not on there.
Yeah, Brian Johnson for the win.
On his way.
Brian Johnson for the win. No, he's still there. He's still there.
He's not on there.
No, okay. They were, at a dinner with Megan actually, but that Megan was paying for it for them.
It was a long wait for hors d'oeuvres.
Okay, go ahead, Margaret.
Okay. Pedro and I are here to talk to you about our security budget, which is 1% of the overall budget. And that 1% includes all of our buildings, all of our contracts, all of our events, anything that is scheduled within our rather large district. So some of our contracted services that we have are Ellington, events that they may be covering during the day, events at night, events that are happening on the weekend. Constables is one of them. We have the police officers that come in and cover some events as well. For example, maybe at the Wolverina during a football game, if one of the police departments can't be present, then we contract out with another
Right,
one.
police departments we use usually is for crowd control or stuff like prom, or traffic control, stuff like that. They just deal with usually the outer part of any event that's going on, so, just to be clear.
And then Navigate 360, which is a software that we will be using. Our supplies, what we do for training, equipment and technology. So for example, within the past year, we've had new metal detectors, we've purchased new radios, we have plate readers that you voted on, I believe last month. New vest for safety, any maintenance updates to the vehicle that Pedro drives. Most important is our Act 55 training, which is a school and security training for all school employees. So at the beginning of the year, we do our 1 hour ALIS training, but then all employees are required to take another 2 hours of additional training during the school year for a total of 3 hours annually. The Act 126 child abuse, that is for, recognition and reporting of that. And then a new one that's just popped up over the last year is called Chapter 49. And that's for culturally relevant and sustaining education for educators. And, it might be a professional ethics course, something to that effect. Okay, next slide. And this is where Brian is going to.
No, I think he's awesome.
He's all right.
They were
I
bringing
will
it
be
to
Brian. All right, so some of the things that we are considering for the 24-25 school year are charging outside groups for the cost of security. And there is already a board policy in place for this, and I believe it's 707. Scheduling events to meet the needs. So for example, if it's a small event, there's no sense putting them in the auditorium where you would need extra security using a larger facility, etc. Working with some tiered shifts to avoid overtime.
Pedro and I are working on, looking at some grant applications through the PA Commission on Crime and Delinquency. And also something called the Safe School Funding Grant, which is through the Pennsylvania Department of Education, and that's for safe schools. And we've also, Pedro attended a workshop meeting not too long ago for Act 55 training, came back with a great idea that our insurance company might be willing to cover the costs of that training. So we've reached out and we do have a positive response on that. So we're going to be working with them over the next month or so. And also some cost savings by being members with the Allegheny Intermediate Unit 3. Okay. Any questions?
I do want to say with the, as far as the, what is it? As far as reaching out to the state, I would say you should contact Representative Arion Abney's office. He is on the, education committee. I believe he's the only person from the, Allegheny County delegation that is.
Okay.
So I would reach out to him as far as, grants and funding and things like that.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So actually the charging outside groups for the cost of security, this is something that was mentioned yesterday. Yesterday, Ms. Rozuski, Ms. Griffin and I, we all came up to this building to discuss security matters. One of the things that was mentioned was engaging again with the Churchill police. Which I'm gonna put it out there now, I'm not okay with. And that was, one of the comments that was made was that that would help us reduce the cost of security. I would I don't care, I'm not okay with that after everything that is transpired. So that's one of the things that came up. Now, if there's another way to reduce the cost of security, like some other type of groups or something like that. I'm not sure how that would go, but I know that's something I'm willing to explore, but just not with, police departments.
So other outside groups could be, anybody that comes in and might want to have like a basketball tournament and use our gym, having nothing to do with our kids playing and like things like that, you would charge them. Or like if dance companies come in and use the auditorium to have their show, then you would charge them. And the two of the large costs are the custodial and the security for that, because we use our security to secure our buildings, but it's an outside group. So say they pay maybe $3,000-4,000, and Brian could speak more to this because he takes care of that. To use the auditorium, they should also cover the costs of what our custodians cost us and what the security costs us for them to use our facility. So that's really more of what that charging outside groups is. Other football teams that use the Wolverina, just different things like that. If people are asking to use our facilities, we are right now often covering large costs for the security and the custodial staff.
Yeah, a lot of that was from previous management, previous board that.
Yeah, so that is
we were kind of
definitely,
Yeah, we were real, given in that case, and
yes.
now it's come to the point where it can't be so given.
And I could have, Mrs. Shambora run those numbers and pull those figures for you, so we could talk about that. If you're interested in talking about that further, I can.
And the other thing is using our guards, we know they're gonna be, set on making sure that our facilities are being protected. Where sometimes when you use outside guards, they're more interested in the client that they came with. So our guards are they're home guards. And mostly what they do is make sure that our stuff is okay, so.
I think if Brian was here, because what Brian would probably complain about, and what he complains to me about, I think he want to vocalize here, is we give our facilities away to our community groups, which we want to, right? We want to help our local community groups. They're not big money organizations. But the policy initially had that they pay a custodial fee and then a security fee, because a lot of times it's overtime. We're using our custodians to cover Saturday events. We're getting time and a half, right? And if Brian or Danny can't get coverage, they're doing it, right? And that's a big ticket number when somebody rents the facility. So there's gonna be use of facility requests that come in front of this board in the next month or two, where Brian's gonna make that pitch, and it's gonna be a tough decision on the board, because some of these groups in the past were given leniency and said, hey, you don't have to pay that fee, because they use it so much, it's a big number. So just know that that's gonna be a decision, every board's different, gonna be a decision this board makes.
Oh, fun stuff.
And five, that's not.
Yeah, we're 0.5% of the total budget. We're the smallest piece of the pie, but. Almost the smallest piece of the pie. But, it's a big impact. We got 18 varsity sports. That's more than some Division I universities. We got 12 middle school sports, and we got about, almost 400 kids that we're servicing through athletics. 44% of our total budget goes to, the operational piece of our games. And we're talking about, referees, and we're talking about clock operators and things like that. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at 44% of supplies, uniforms, equipment. So that's, self-explanatory. It's our equipment, it's our uniforms that the teams are using, supplies that they may need to get ready for competition. Contracted professional services is 37%. That's our official, that's our media, that's our clock operators, medical services, and our athletic trainer, which is who we contract through UPMC, which we'll be talking about soon because our contract is up. And then transportation is 18% of all of our budget, and that's just to, get our kids to and from games, and to and from practices in some cases. Miscellaneous is 1%. That's stuff like flowers for senior rec and, whenever we print out, things for, pictures and stuff of our kids, that comes from that. Accomplishments, we previously wasn't, working with any apparel group in a partnership. So, we were buying everything at full price and getting nothing from it. So we were able to partner with BSN Sports, where everything that we buy is wholesale price at 30%. So we're able to cut back on some costs there. And we also get a rebate from that. It was no cost to us. It's to say, hey, everything that you buy from BSN Sports will come at a discount. And at the end of the year, you'll get a 10% rebate from it, which is good because whenever we buy, things like football uniforms, we'll be able to outfit other sports for free, which is huge for us. Some of our challenges are, parent involvement is huge. And a lot of times we don't have enough parent involvement in some of our sports, and that impacts our fundraising and our boosters. So we have to come out of our budget sometimes to give our kids, travel gear and things like that, because we want to make sure that they're going to places presentable and they're all in uniform. And, a lot of our kids don't have the means to, dress nice, go into different schools. So that's where we come in and really, fit that bill for them. Another one of the challenges are, getting butts in the seats and really making a full house at our games. Because you see some weeks we'll go and we'll submit a $500 check for ticket sales, but then if Penn Hills is coming to town, we'll have a $3,500 check that we're submitting. And if we can get more butts in the seats for all of our games and not just our big games, we can bring in some more money. And that's just us trying to figure out how to enhance our game day experiences, making sure that people who come to our games are having a good time and wanting to come back, and that goes into our 24-25 goals. I don't know what that looks like, but that's something that we need to talk about and, really try to figure out to get people to come to our games. And yeah, that's goes into the goals. And then the other goal is trying to bring in different revenue streams to our department. We're going to bring back the showcase at the Wolverina, where we're going to host, 4 to 5 games on week 0. That will be a big money maker in ticket sales for us. Because, we'll have 8 to 10 different teams down at the Wolverina, and, they're gonna bring their fans and they're gonna bring us their money. So we're looking to include things like that so that we can, enhance revenue streams. Any questions? Appreciate it.
Thank you. Hey, Chandra.
All right, for technology, we're at 1.25 million. The biggest piece of the pie for that is software and leases. This includes PowerSchool, VMware, which manages all of our servers and the backups of all of our data. cybersecurity software that we have, and then also, ClassLink is a big piece which we use for all of our students so they can access their curriculum programs. Supplies and hardware take up 37%. That includes things such as desktop, our replacement cycle of our high school computer labs, replacement cycle Promethean boards, and upgrading audio video equipment in our auditorium, as well as replacement parts for Chromebooks when students are breaking them. Communications, so that includes not only our internet, but cell phone service as well as phone service for our desk phones. And then outsourced contracted services. And what that is if we have any kind of networking issue that say we can't solve right away, or a phone issue, then we have somebody that we're able to call and make sure that we're able to get the support to get that off as fast as we can. And then miscellaneous items. All right, the effects of ESSER. So what we're looking at doing is, with the remaining ESSER money, buying 600 Chromebooks this year. And then next year around September, buying 600 additional Chromebooks that'll go to the following year. So that money will last us and help a lot with their general budget, as far as lasting us 2 years to where we know we'll be good on Chromebooks. We can continue our replacement cycles. And with that, as we talked about before, we are able to get better equipped Chromebooks than what we previously had. And then cybersecurity and software platforms, and that's a big change where all of that, as well as the other departments, are gonna be transforming back into the general fund. And then the online curriculum platforms, which I've been working with Mr. Wilson with, and that's where we got to decide, all right, what are we utilizing, what aren't we utilizing? And we have a lot of those metrics to be able to see. Again, going back to ClassLink, which I talked about, we can see what programs teachers are using in the classroom and what ones they aren't. Accomplishments. I think the biggest one so far for us has been the cybersecurity program. And I actually just looked at this before the meeting. July 21, we're spending $138,000 for our main antivirus platform. And you guys just approved it at the last meeting, so now we're down, thanks not only our internal staff, but also they made a state consortium where it's down to under 20,000 now. So that's a huge cutback. Wow, we increased our security and never took a step back. And correcting our one-to-one program, that was definitely a huge program this year. I know previously, if you guys were around whenever COVID first started, and that was before my time, there was stories about principals just handing Chromebooks out. And we didn't know who had what, since there was no accountability, kids would break it, and that drove the cost of replacing the parts up. So now if you grab a Chromebook, we can tell you what student it belongs to, how long they had it, and that really cut down on cost. And then reliability, state testing is now all online, so that's something that we did last year with doing all of our access points and renewing them. And then we're doing the backbone of our network this year with the switches. And I know that's one big thing with the high school. I think they had 200 or 300 kids just in the gymnasium doing the PSSA testing last year. Or Keystone, thank you. And we had to make sure those 300 kids could all test simultaneously online in one room. Goals going forward, again, I just talked about it, network infrastructure, so the backbone, the things that you guys don't see, but ensures that that connectivity is there for the state testing. And then, again, and I touched on this, is buying those upgraded Chromebooks, that way our students get the best out of what they're using and have that speed to accomplish tasks in a timely manner. Any questions?
Quick question. I don't know if this is the right topic, but the installation of the screen in the auditorium, that cost established in there, inside your budget?
I think he's talking about Mr. Crohn's screen.
Oh, that was not out of our budget. Mr. Crone was able to get that money through private resources, I believe.
Yeah.
Okay.
His guys put it together. right?
Yeah, yeah.
Mr. George and Mr. Slicker currently putting it together, is my understanding.
I thought I saw.
Things close.
PTO today. But they showed the school, the other school that's using it. The country.
Ms. Pam?
All right, so mine is a slither of the budget, it's 0.8%, and my overall budget is $915,000. 49% of my budget goes towards tuition and placements and other things like alternative education, Also, we have to pay for students who are educated in a hospital such as Western Psych. And for students who are court appointed to attend place detention centers. So we have to pay for education for those students as well. 45% of my budget goes towards contracted services. All supports that are a cost to the district for our students, including mental health resources, students experiencing homelessness, foster care, medical needs, that all comes out of my budget. Thankfully, a lot of the programs that we have in our district come to us at no cost. A lot of people knock on our doors and they want, they have grants and they want to work with us. So that is a blessing that we do have a lot of programs that are free of charge, but we also do have programs that cost us. And then 6% of my budget goes towards professional development. That includes staff training, such as child abuse training, SAP training, and things of that nature. And then this year, a lot of that went towards like Moab. I split it with Pedro's budget, but it came out of both of our budgets.
That is in the Pedro's budget.
It's, you got it. That was your, you got it. Here you go.
Point that out.
All right, so unfortunately, we have paid with a lot of services out of ESSERS. And obviously with that funding running out, we're gonna have to return our resource levels back to pre-COVID. And we're gonna have to figure out a way, which goes down to my challenges, how to really maintain the mental health supports that we do have in a district with the funding that we have. A lot of the services that we are paying with for grants, those are running out. So again, we're just gonna have to decide how are we going to maintain the mental health support within our district. I have a list of accomplishments that I feel like my department has truthfully, accomplished this year. I feel like we really truthfully developed working relationships with the providers. We held a provider meeting and everyone was just so happy to be able to sit around the table with everyone who works in our district and collectively talk about how we're supporting our students. I also started a data collection process with our providers where they have to turn in data at the end of the year, to ensure that they are actually doing what they're saying they're doing. Because again, we get a lot of people who come in and say, hey, we want to work with your kids. And some of them aren't the best. So it's just really holding them accountable for what they're doing. We're holding our alternative education providers accountable. Our high school administrators, our middle school administrators, and Ms. Gaither does a wonderful job with meeting with those providers to ensure that they are actually educating our students properly and really working on our students' mental health when they are in audit. We get a lot of compliments from alternative ed providers about how we really collaborate with outside schools. So we're not just sending our kids and saying, here, you go there. We're not leaving them there to hang dry. We are actually working with the outside providers. We implemented Moab in the majority of our schools. We just have one more building left. That is our crisis management system that we use. That in the long run will save us money. CPI was extremely expensive to upkeep. So implementing that is a big cost saver. Attendance, we purchased a program to help us in reducing our chronic absenteeism rate. So those of you who have kids in district, you got our text message last month. And so it's starting conversations between families that we didn't have previously where we would send out letters. Families are actually now paying attention to their students' attendance. And then we're also having those constant conversations about attendance and reporting. There has been lots of conversations about how we can improve our attendance. SEL, we kicked off our Carlo program this year, which is from what I'm hearing, how many students, Mr. Greenwich, do you know? Okay, I think it was like 10 or 11 or 12 referrals. It was a good bit of referrals that are off running. And so we're really excited about that. We created calming spaces in 4 out of 5 of our buildings this year, and we're slowly turning them into the resiliency rooms like our high school has. And then we also piloted an SEL curriculum at one of our elementary schools. And then lastly, WOA, we're currently educating 190 full-time students and 80 part-time students on our online program. So that's keeping a good bit of our students within the district. And then we launched a pilot program this year. So we've been working with educators and families throughout the year to decide if this is the platform that we want to switch over to. We're not ready for a big overhaul yet, but we're looking at maybe expanding it to another grade next year to see how it works. And then we also reinstated the wellness committee. Prior to COVID, there was a wellness committee. After COVID hit, the wellness committee didn't come back, so we reestablished that this year with, the educators in the district. Goals, basically to continue assessing our needs, with providers in the local community, enhance our online program. We're obviously trying to improve that and figure out how, we can gain more students back. And then monitoring our students' progress through attendance, and behavior. Those are just general goals.
Questions?
How many homeless students do we have?
Oh, we have, I don't have the number offhand, but there's a great bit of our students who are experiencing homelessness. And you obviously, that definition of homelessness is very broad. So anybody who lives is doubled up with someone is considered homeless. We have a good bit of students who are considered homeless, and then we have a good bit of students in foster care. I can get you the number, there's a spreadsheet that we keep, I can get you those and email you those, but it's a great deal of our population.
That's a question. So as you're looking at resources that you're gonna cut back on, is it gonna be looking at how many kids are enrolled into that program? If it's 2 and the other one has 20, the one that has 2, you'll cut back, or is it gonna be like?
So we're looking at, obviously costs, number one. We're looking at who impacts a good deal of our, population. We did send out a survey, to our principals and our social workers to determine their feelings about the different organizations that are within the district. So that's gonna kind of help drive that. And then also the data that they turn in will also help drive that as well. But again, a lot of our programs honestly are free at cost. And there are a lot of people who come to us with grants who want to work with us. But there's programs like HSAO, Human Services, I can never remember what it stands for. It's Human Services something. Human Services Administration, organization. They are phenomenal. They're like case management. And they're like a tier 3 support for our needy population. They're very costly, but they are one of our better programs that we want to try to figure out how to keep, so.
Okay, Ms. Leah, how do you think?
Okay, special ed budget, so.
Not that you're not important, but the most important man in the building is more there. You're on camera too, by the way.
So, my budget makes up approximately 6.6%. And this entails, contracted services. So 55% of that includes services that go into, educating our students who are in like outside placements. So that consists of occupational therapy services, physical therapy services, speech services, a personal care assistant if the IEP dictates that, and mental health services. We are also paying, like I just said previously, tuition to approved private schools for those students that we may not be able to, per their IEP, meet their needs here in district. So we have some approved private schools that we send our students to. 6% makes up our psychological services. So that consists of like testing materials, our school sites may need. They do a lot of their data collection online, but we have to purchase that through Pearson for them to have access to that. Another 5% goes for our extended school year services or ESY services that we hold for 4 weeks or so, June to the beginning of July. And then 4% is just supplies and miscellaneous things that, the special ed teachers may need for their classroom. So that is pretty low. Some accomplishments this year. So I have a new administrative support person, Elizabeth Bernosky. She's been working closely with our PIMS person to account for over $100,000 from our recent child count reporting that is held December 1st of every year, the report's due. So they were able, so each special ed student, I guess, accounts for $1,000. So they were able to, really improve the data, and that process to now, I think it was, what, 800,000, and we're now to, yeah. So they did a phenomenal job in, just collecting the data correctly from past years. We now subcontract for our access reporting, and this is, in collecting paraprofessional logs and special ed teacher, random moment time studies, we get money back into the district that is used specifically just for special ed spending. So once this money accrues into our bank, we will be able to tap into that for more of these things that, needed services or anything for special ed. So, I mean, we could go from, getting a van, a special ed van with that access money to whatever. So, it's just going to take time to build that, to get that to accrue. Some challenges that we face. So we are very transient. So we have students coming into the district that are already placed in an APS from a prior school district, like PPS may have a student that goes to Friendship. Well, when that student moves in, we have to honor that, it's called a NORA, their educational placement. So we send them, or I guess that's the word I want to use, send them to, that they continue at that placement until then an IEP meeting is held and that process is followed. So we are absorbing those students coming in from outside districts as well. So that adds to the cost. The needs of our students have increased, so that also plays a part into an APS for maybe those students who are autistic, who need more supports. So it's not only behavioral things, it's just their needs are more severe than we're able to provide services here in-house. A lot of our students coming in, like from early intervention in kindergarten, now they're nonverbal. So we, on the advice of, we use the AIU to do AT assessments. They recommend iPads. So a lot of this money is going into it for the students to help them communicate, to help, better manage behaviors. And a lot of the kids aren't potty trained either. So we're getting into using the PCA so that it's just a lot of needs. Some goals for the coming years to keep more students in district. So, reconvening as a team and figuring out individually what we can do for that student to keep them here in the district to service them. I'm in the process of cleaning up the procedures and the paperwork, just from years past. And Dr. White and I have been really, working well together on updating everything and getting that out. So the big goal for me is really to improve our paperwork and just meeting the needs of our students the best we can here in district.
What is our rate of special education as of this month?
So we're at about 26%. We have approximately 150 students in an outside placement and roughly like 960 special ed students in the district.
That's in addition to the 150 that are outplaced, or that's all?
Mhm.
Right. Yeah. So,
We're pushing 28%.
It's high,
plus,
yeah. High.
Now for the fun slide, the best slides. I struggle with presenting from sitting down. I also struggle with my phone, so I'm gonna put it there. Like our high school kids. So my budget is $678,000 a year. That's approximately 0.6% for the district. 28% each are spent on books and curricular publications, tech for learning, and coordinated professional services. So a total of 84% of my budget are the things that you would expect from curriculum, buying the new science curriculum, for example, that y'all will vote on this month, the K-5 Amplify Science, which will give us Steele's Access K-12, when combined with the new 6, 8, and 9, 12 science curricula that we've purchased over the last 2 years. Tech for Learning are many of our supplemental platforms like iReady and Think Through Math, things along those lines. And then Coordinate Professional Services, all of those curricular resources require professional development for our educators. And so all of our educators get trained on the curriculum that they use. 14% of my budget are the general supplies needed to keep those curricular resources up to date. So lab supplies, slides, materials for geometry. We bought Mr. Cole some whiteboards last year, things along those lines, all the supplies needed to help our educators to instruct. And then 2% of my budget is miscellaneous expenses. Those are other supplies, paper, pencil, administrative costs, etc. And then with ESSER's money, so as part of the federal programs office, we've been managing ESSER's. We're happy to say that the salaries that we put in ESSER's, we have been able to move back to the general fund, so we're very excited about that. And then the overwhelming majority of the programs that we paid for with ESSER dollars, we found a way in this new budget to keep them intact in the school. But what that means is that my budget, the $678,000 that's quoted there, is about 55% more than it was pre-COVID. And so we will, as we move forward, we will pray for Governor Shapiro to give us more money, while at the same time and in parallel, look at additional costs where we can find it. And then also in my office is the federal programs budget. So our federal programs, for those that don't know, we are a 100% CEP district, so 100% title district. All of our kids qualify for free or reduced lunch because of the percent of our population that is below the 300% poverty line for federal programs. So with the Title I money that we have, the $2.3 million, we use that to fund our supplemental assistance programs. Those are our instructional coaches, our 2 tech coaches, and the other tutors that we have, reading specialists and math interventionists in our buildings. Title II, we spend that full $220,000 on salary and benefits to reduce class sizes, specifically in first grade. That pays for 2 additional educators in the district to reduce class sizes. And then Title IV are supplemental resources. That is mainly professional development and additional costs. So all of the interaction series and the professional development books, the things that Mr. McGuire does, are additional supplemental resources. Those come out of Title IV. And then we also have our pre-K counts budget that comes out of my office, which handles the 90 pre-K counts slots that we have in the district. Any questions?
I have just a question about the curriculum costs.
Yeah.
Is that where the VEX costs come from? Is from that budget?
That's
as
correct.
well?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And so does that also mean then that the consulting fees for VEX also come out of that budget?
That's correct. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
All right, but they know human resources makes up 0.05. Thank you, Mr. Brown. The total budget approximately is $56,000. That includes, well, mostly data collection, which includes Frontline, ProSoft, areas such as that will be inter-employee data. Frontline, as you know, as the board in December, we're purchasing our own in-house. Prior to that, we were renting it through county service, so we will own that. We're working on bringing that on right now, so that will be ours. Salary and benefit expenses are based on collective bargaining agreements and contracts. Those are professional contracts as well as the support contracts. The professional contract expires next year, June 2025, and support expires in June 2026. Human resources handles staff relations between each other and with supervisors and outside contractors. So all internal matters involving employees, as well as outside internal matters with contractors, such as Maxim, who provides us with paraprofessionals that we need, and as well as some school monitors, as well as Kelly Service with their substitutes, and our new self-service we have coming on, which is STS. And any other matters that may escalate with other outside contractors.
And I don't know why that looked terrible, but it didn't used to. Sean,
I'll fix
my
it.
slide.
I'll fix it. Speed.
Okay, salary and benefits, which makes up 47% of the total budget, and that includes teachers, which is approximately $22 million. Administration, which is your Act 93 and your other administrators, makes up $3 million. Maintenance and custodial make up 1.8. Act 93 support, which is your folks like your supervisors and your coordinators, they make up 1.6. Classroom aides, which are under support contract, make up 1.3. And our clerical staff makes up approximately $681. The athletics, our coaches, our ADRs, after school activities such as tutoring, things such as that, long-term subs, bus monitors, overtime, and homebound teachers, that makes up approximate amount of 1.7 million, for a total of 32 point, wow, wait, I'm just really taking that number in. $32 million, which is 28% of the total budget that I mentioned previously. Benefits, which includes health insurance, 6.8 million, dental vision, life and disability make it 470,000. Social Security is 2.2 million. Retirement, which is the largest, obviously, through users, is $11 million. Tuition reimbursement is a set amount every year, which makes up $250,000. Once that money is exhausted, it's done until the next school year. Unemployment workers' compensation makes up $200,000. And retiree benefits is $625,000, for a total amount of $21.5 million, which is 19% of the total budget.
And just to interject something smaller, just for the board. So we belong to ASHIC. ASHIC gives us an estimate of an increase. We're basing that on their projection. It could be a little bit higher, it could be a little bit lower. But we gotta go by what they're saying right now. Don't say that, please. But when you're in this consortium, you're at the whim of the consortium. The other one is the pension cost, that 11 million, that's set by the state. Really, in the last 15 years, the state put the burden of that cost onto the school districts. It never used to be like that, okay? And the districts paid a very small percent, 3, 4, 5% of employee costs. Is it 33 now? 32?
It's, your budget will be 33.9.
33.9 now. And, so they're trying to play catch up. This is the old when Enron blew up and everything. The pension system blew up and it was only about 30% funded. So they had to come up with ways. What they did, the employees had to contribute more and the districts had to contribute way more. And so these are all increased costs that every year, that 10 years ago, districts didn't have.
And we'll receive that number with the healthcare in April, so
Okay.
it's a 10% up or down.
I won't be here. I'm skipping it for me.
I'll be sick that day.
Ms. Griffin, would you like to please?
So we also have, 2 other buildings that we manage and run and have programs in. One of them is the Swissville Library. It has a small portion of our budget. 75% of the expenses are for the professional services of the librarian and the other support personnel that work there. And any programs and, different events that Dr. Kate holds. If you haven't met Dr. Kate, she should be here maybe next week, I'm not sure. 25% covers the books that she needs, the equipment that she needs, meaning any copiers, things like that, the supplies, her papers, different things that she needs to hold. She has nice programs over there and her heart is huge. And she loves this building and nobody will tell you any different. It's her library. But this does not include the utilities, the custodial, the security services. I actually don't think we have any security services over there at that building. And the utilities we would have to pay anyway, and we have to pay custodial because we own the building. So that's part of our contract that our people clean that building. The other building is the Rankin Community Center. It has just about as much money as you do, Angel.
Just a little more.
The expenses for that, now, this current school year that we're sitting in does not have a set budget for the Rankin Center because it opened after the budget was already set. So in this new budget, we have placed $60,000 aside for expenses to include any supplies, equipment, technology, contracted service for events and programs. This is pretty much our pilot year in the Rankin Center because we don't know, it's been very successful thus far, but we don't know exactly what services, what events, what programs. I know that Mr. Ford has been working diligently to try to get people to come in for free, people to do different things. We have received multiple donations from outside services, one of them being Kellington, who did offer, they bought the equipment, a lot of the technology and the equipment that's in there. What is it exactly, John, like the PlayStations?
Yeah, they got a room there, they have PlayStations, Xboxes, TVs where the kids can play different games and be in a good community.
Okay. And then this, again, does not include the utilities, custodial, or security services. Now, we do have security in this building because there are students there, there are large events there. Dr. Kate's little hot chocolate and cookie event at the Smithfield Library, we think we can do without security, but here at the Rankin Center, when we do have large events, then they do have a security guard. And actually, I think they have a security guard there at all times when students are in and out of the building.
Yes.
Okay. So, charter school tuition and the debt service. Charter school tuition is 21% of our budget. It's a sickening number. 24,400,000. 11.8 of that is for regular tuition. Special education tuition is 12.6. It is unmanageable. Every time a special education student leaves us or starts in a charter school or a cyber charter school, which is even worse, their tuition rate for this year is $53,000 per student. Nobody asks what services they need. Nobody cares. We get the sign-off sheet for the IEPs. So the formula is completely broken. So if any of you on the board are talking to anybody at the state level, push. This is the problem. It absolutely needs restructured. The way that it is calculated has not been looked at since 1996. They're using the same formula that they used since 1996, and it's based on 16%. And we just heard Mrs. Silva say that ours is 26 to 28%. If they let us actually use the formula that was based on the number of students that we have here, that we are educated in special education, that number will probably go down into the 30,000s instead of the 50,000s. So it is broken. It's absolutely broken. The tuition rate for a regular education student is based on our tuition rate. So what we get from the state to educate a student, they get to educate a student. That's okay. It's normal. That's what they're getting. It's the special education tuition that is killing public schools.
And the regular rate is 13,000.
Right.
Compared to the special,
13,000.
it's 53,000.
$40,000. Yeah. Debt service payment, the payment is up because we did take the two loans, we took the bond issues, the 23 and the 24. However, it is important to say that we do have a set aside fund that is sitting there for the next 2 years to bring that payment down to the 7.5 million. That it will remain then after the 2 years when that set aside funds go, one of our payments, they will be paid, one of our bonds will be paid off, keeping the payment at 7.5 million. So that should remain at the 7.7%. Unless we have to take another bond issue, but I don't see that anytime in the foreseeable future. These are 2% of our budget is for small district-wide. So this is basically the district-wide little expenses here and there that don't fall in any of these categories of these fine administrators that are sitting here. The nursing services are not only our nurses in the buildings, but it is all the nursing services that we have to bring in LPNs. Sometimes we have to pay for LPNs that are at outside placements that aren't part of the tuition because a student needs something like that. Sometimes we need a nurse on a bus, on a van, different things like that. Tax collection, that is what we pay our tax collectors, their rate to collect the almost $60 million that we receive in taxes. That's what we have to pay them. IU services are anything and everything you can think of that we use the IU for, and everybody sitting there at the table uses the IU for something. So that it all goes into one pot called IU services. The building and student expenses, that is for what our principals use. So that would be anything that the principals need for anything that they possibly need in their building, for as far as supplies, as far as anything that they would need to keep their buildings running. Legal and auditing, that is anything that comes through as far as our auditor, all of our legal expenses for anything related to special education, tax collections, regular daily things, any kind of legal matters that hit the district. Hey, come on. Carl. They laid it on shirt, but we'll take it.
That's okay. That's don't worry. Well, we won't be, way too much longer. We'll make it. Thank you for trying.
Thank you. The prior year expenses, that is when we get a bill. So anything that we pay for a particular school year after September 30th, we get a bill that comes in maybe October or later that was for the previous school year. We have to put it under prior year expenses. You cannot put it in the regular budget. It goes to prior year expenses. Sometimes that's a small tuition bill that we might get. Sometimes it's a bill that we get from athletics that somebody had to go on some van somewhere and it wasn't paid for. It's just small things that drift in throughout the year. That's where that goes. Substitutes are what Ms. Boyd was speaking of. Any substitute, that's for teachers, for custodial staff, for secretaries, for paraprofessionals. Board services, that is anything and everything that hits the board that you have to make a decision about. It's insurance, it's anytime you may need some kind of service that comes in that you say, okay, we have to pay for this, we have to pay for that. If you want a list of these, please let me know. I can absolutely run them for you, but that's just a generalization. Principal offices are exactly that, what they need in the 5 buildings to run their principal offices. That would be paper, pencils, anything that their secretaries need, anything that they need as far as maybe a little snack to keep the kiddos happy because their belly hurts or whatever. The business office, that goes towards anything that we need as far as the check printing, any services. We have a lot of, what are some of the things that I pay for? The DAC, any of the banking services and things like that. I think I pay for part of ProSoft out of that,
Yes,
right?
yeah, financially, yeah.
Things like that. So it's also, a lot of this is also anybody that's using any kind of technology as far as a software platform. It's lands in each category. And then the superintendent's office, anything that he may need once says that, any programs that we're gonna have or things like that. He has the whopping $22,000 to tide him over.
I didn't really know I had that. No. You just handle that.
Yeah.
I think you're gonna do this. I guess you handle.
Okay, so the revenue that is projected and up there in red, pending governor's budget, I think this is a good time to point out that he is saying that he's giving us $5.5 million, which is fantastic. It's absolutely wonderful. It is a godsend. If he pulls back on that, we're in trouble because then half of our fund balance is gonna have to go into balancing this budget. And then we're gonna have to make some serious choices and discussions. Here's the problem with that. This current year that we're sitting in, 23-24, he gave us a number in February, said, this is what I'm gonna give you. That's what we budgeted for. He said, hurrah, this is what I'm doing, I'm all for public education. Then as the politics got into it and they decided, okay, I'll take this and you take that, and they decided how to get along, at Christmas of this year, they yanked back $1.7 million out of our budget and said, sorry, we changed our mind, we're not gonna give that to you. So we lost that 1.7 million. We're not gonna get it again this year because they pulled it up, it's called level up funding. And it was funding for school districts such as Woodland Hills that has a socioeconomic, criteria that they say, oh, okay, they picked some of the schools that they thought really needed it the most, they yanked it from all of us. Didn't give it to us. So this year, he's saying 5.5 million Woodland Hills, here you go educate your kids, keep the mental health services, keep everything happy, figure it out. That's what we're doing. That's what everybody in this room is doing, and that's our goal. If he does it again, and it's in the next Christmas, we've already started the year. So then at this point, we're all gonna come to you and say, what do you wanna do now? What do you wanna do? But I think that we need to, if that happens, everybody better start yelling at the legislators at that point and say, how many times are you gonna do this to us? Because now you literally want us to cut massive amounts out of our staff and our resources for these children that you said they needed, and now you're taking it back. We couldn't even raise taxes enough to get that much money back. But unfortunately, we have to set our budget by June 30th, and they don't have to set a budget. They don't have to.
I think too, the important thing, the promising thing here, looking at governor's proposals of the last years, the level of funding was only about 10% of school districts across the United States, or across Pennsylvania. And so what happened was the other 90% was like, why don't we get any of that money, right? His proposal benefits everyone, okay? So I don't think he's gonna pull back. Also, the Basic Ed Funding Commission was tasked with fixing the broken Basic Ed funding formula, which was found unconstitutional, all right? They haven't been able to figure out what's constitutional. So what, okay, yeah, it's wrong and it's broke, but how do you disperse it? But their initial findings said we were about 5 million underfunded. So what I think Shapiro's doing is saying, okay, Basic Ed Funding Commission, I'm gonna solve it for you. I'm gonna build it right into Basic Ed funding based upon your recommendations and take that onus off you. That's what I think. So I think all those indications are good signs that this is gonna hold true because of all that data in the background. But again, there's gonna be a push for vouchers. And there's a one partisan push for vouchers, and the other side is this Basic Ed funding number. And so he's gonna have to play politics, and that's what yanked the level of funding away from us. Was that he said, okay, I won't agree to the voucher system, but we're gonna take the level of funding away. So again, I don't wanna be in issues, but I do feel positive that his recommendation will stand.
Inside the school. There was a lot of funding going into that. We had passed some funding to the second school without anyone really moving it. It was his decision, and we chose some of that money went there. So cyber schools are still on the table.
And what Ms. Lyons recently sent me was, and this has been on the table since about 2015. It's a very easy explanation for the special ed costs that we pay to cyber schools. And the argument is it should be based on the disability category of the student. A student with a speech IEP that receives services 40 minutes a day, once a week, shouldn't carry $53,000 when a full-time autistic support student gets $53,000. So it should be scaled based on the need and then the services that cost. Doesn't that make perfect sense, right? That's been an argument for 8 years, but it's back on the table again. That would be a huge impact to our budget if they did it. We're talking $3-4 million will come back to us just by that changing. And it's such a reasonable argument, so. But that's collectively as schools, like boards collectively don't make that united pitch. I think that's what we have to do.
So you'll see there's still a deficit of 2.188 million. However, this team, we're gonna continue to look at it. We're gonna continue to look at every line item and make decisions based on what's best for the district and the students, but the students have to come first. So you do have fund balance to cover that. It is sitting there. And we said that when we were building the fund balance around the loss of the ESSER funds, we knew that this was going to happen. If the fund balance, if a small portion of it has to be used every year for the next 5 years, while this is all going up and down, it is available to us. There's a lot of school districts that don't have this. So we are very fortunate to have the fund balance that is sitting there ready to make sure that we're still able to give the students 90% of the resources that they have. But that doesn't mean that we're not gonna, that we're just quitting now. We're not quitting. It's March. We have 3 months to still talk about this, to look at everything, to have discussions, to have meetings, and we'll go from there. So we wanted to give you, this is our first look at it. This is first projection. Now, the way it works, in May, we will bring you a proposed final budget that you have to vote on, and then it has to go to public display for 30 days. It has to legally be up there for 30 days for anybody in the public to look at. And then after that, then you will vote on the final budget. So that has to be in May, because you have to agree on a budget in June. And that's not my role. It's the state's role, which is terrible sometimes, like Dr. Stagna said, we have to do it and they don't. So, but that's what you're charged with as a board, to set your budget.
Yeah.
Okay, I have to go because I have got parenting things I didn't have to do before. But I want to remind you, and Mr. Wilson can expand on it. I sent you all the little advertisement for the Student Summit, which grew, we're the hosts of the multi-district student summit. It grew from 5 schools to now 15 schools, 5 counties, and they're having it in Penn State, Allegheny. Ms. Lyons and I are going, and Ms. Wall would like any of us that want to come because they'll get us, but please support our kids because it's just an amazing thing that they've done. They have lots of topics they're discussing, so. Bye.
Thank you, Ms. Soto.
All right, John, we're done.
All done?
Okay, on the board matters. So next week we have the agenda meeting. We'll review these, and then the week after that, we'll be asking for a motion and a second to approve. Now, this is the program of services budget. This comes from the AIU. Every school district in Allegheny County has to pay a portion of their program of services budget. Our total will be 2.2 million. Again, this comes from the AIU. It's deliberated and recommended from the board. Every school district passes it, and then they formally adopt it. The second will be a motion to approve the school calendar. The difference here is the 190 money.
The other school calendars were added to it, so for each different area, like professionals and support group, they have different calendar years. So for instance, support has 211, they have 260, they have 183, they have 187, which are their paraprofessionals. Secretaries are 211, custodians and maintenance are 260. Act 93 calendar also is approved in there as well. So those are all lumped in for approval. We have to set the initial calendar to create audio. Second.
Thank you, Ms. Gould. Okay, curriculum.
So curriculum has 2 tabs this month. Sorry, I was off on a different tangent. The first is we would like to send 2 additional individuals to the VEX Educators Conference on VEX Worlds in Dallas, April 29th to May 3rd, this year of 2024. You already approved last month for Tina Dietrich, Danielle McCoy, and Desiree White Price to go present at that conference because they were asked to come present at that conference. Last year, Dr. Stagna and myself were able to go as well, and that's where we received the CS for All Accelerated Grant, which is what we paid for 2 additional educators to go. And it's also where Ms. Dietrich and myself got the structure for the competitions. For anybody that didn't see, we just sent 2 teams to the States for VEX Robotics, and we were able to host a regional VEX Robotics tournament at our high school. All of that came from sending folks to this conference, and I will reiterate that no cost would come from the general fund. This would be completely paid for with the CS for All Accelerated Grant
Buildings and grounds, I'm guessing, Ms. Regan, you're gonna take that, or I'm sorry, people services.
Still got 5.2.
Oh, geez, oh, man.
Don't
I gotta
get
scroll
past
out.
my amplified science, Dr. C.
It's hard, man. It's
Come
hard.
on. So, for anybody that's not, up to date on any and all things curriculum in the state, you may not know that the state has had a huge push, actually over the last decade, for new science standards. These are the STEELS standards. We are excited to potentially, if you approve it, use the last bit of our ESSER 3 funding on purchasing a K-5 amplified science curriculum that will completely line up with our STEELS standards. We replaced 2 years ago, we replaced all high school science curriculum with Savas. And last year, we replaced all middle school curriculum with Amplify. The middle school science educators love Amplify so much that we've talked to elementary educators. They're actually doing a presentation to many elementary educators tomorrow, just to make sure that our elementary teachers are on board. But we've been kind of piecemealing our science curricula for the last many years. So it's well before I got here. And that's not fair to our scholars, and it's not fair to our educators. And so we want to give them the tools and resources necessary to do justice to our science curriculum. Any questions?
So will this allow the kids to have science every day and not sporadically?
Yep, I understand what you're saying. It absolutely would. The Amplified Science curriculum is a 166-day program, so it would allow that. We still allow for, over the summertime, we work with the principals to work out exactly what the schedule is in the buildings. But yes, this would give us enough science curriculum to do daily science.
I'm sorry. All right.
It's hot.
I have one board tab this month, and as I stated in the previous during presentation, we get a lot of people, outside people who come in and say, hey, we want to work with you. We received a grant and we want to work with you. So Turtle Creek Community Health Center reached out, and they are in the process of writing a grant, getting IRB approved, which is the board who basically says, yes, go ahead and conduct a study, and then make sure that, you know, the study is fair and that we're not poisoning human beings and things of that nature. So they would like to write a grant through the American Academy of Pediatrics to really help improve our management of chronic conditions in schools. So they met with our nurses on Tuesday or Friday, actually, and they talked about whether, we would focus on things such as like maybe Crohn's disease, or focus on more prevalent things such as asthma. We did previously have worked with Duquesne University, and they had an asthma study, and we had an asthma clinic, but that study ran out. So we're currently not focusing on asthma, but they would like to come in and really figure out how we can improve the conditions that our students experience. Their goal is going to be to identify some of the most needed areas where the clinic can be helpful to our district. And our nurses and everyone who deals with all of these, health needs. And then they would like to, really establish a long-term partnership with our district. So we get a lot of outside organizations. They just really want to get approval to be able to go to the IRB and say, hey, Woodland Hills is welcoming us, and can we proceed with the study?
Buildings and grounds is it's the quote that for the bleachers, for the total replacement of the bleachers in the high school and the middle school, right? No, the main of both, okay, yeah, you talked about it.
Both gyms in high school, that's the concept.
Okay, and that was because it didn't pass inspection, right? They didn't pass inspection.
Yeah, there could be more money to repair them than to replace them, so.
Okay, so this, is actually, the Buildings and Grounds did ask for this already to go out for, an RFP. This is the quote that they received for the RFP, and so this is what they would like to move forward and do to put the new bleachers in to get that project started, and it will come out of the capital projects fund.
I will be asking to approve Ms. Dietrich and Ms. Desiree White Price to attend the Computer Science Teachers Education Conference this year. It's in the summer, not too often teachers ask us if we want to do something in July. But these two ladies do a lot for our STEM and robotics program. Our program is getting national accolades. They are going there as presenters for the Computer Science National Conference. Again, to have Woodland Hill's name on this is huge. The competition they just recently did, they were there Friday night, these two sending me pictures, moving themselves around, setting up the gym for that competition, and they have the competition all day Saturday. They put in so much time, I'd really like to support their attendance here, so we're gonna ask for that approval in 2 weeks. Any questions? Go ahead.
If I could just add to that, because their session application was so strong, the conference itself offered to pay for Ms. Dietrich's full registration and half of Ms. White Price's registration so that they could alleviate some of the costs from the district and the curriculum budget. It's a huge deal. I mean, when your session gets approved, you're very happy, but to have your session approved and to have registration paid for is a big, big deal. And the last thing I'll say about the CSTA is there are 3 major computer science conferences in the United States every year. One is Future of Education Technology Conference, that Dr. Stagg and I presented at in Orlando. One is the VEX Educators Conference that we have Ms. Dietrich, Ms. White Price, and Ms. McCoy presenting at, and the other is CSTA in Vegas. So for us to have sessions that are being led in all 3 is a huge deal.
It's quite a two.
It is.
It really is. It really is.
Okay, for the public questions, I don't see any, John, on email.
I didn't.
I don't
Down on email and
Anyone in the room would like to speak?
Would you mind, Ms. Lawson, if I just did 3 quick shout outs before we ask folks to speak? I did.
Wilson.
I wanted to do a shout out, you know, we always like to shout out Mr. McGuire and the interaction series. They just had the author of Friday Black, which is the One Book, One District, book, and it was a huge success. So wanted to shout that out. Also want to shout out Mr. Brad Zolnak, one of our educators at the high school, and Mr. Rodriguez and the team up there. They ran, as you know, we've been trying to increase AP enrollment. Since I got here, they ran a panel that was led by AP students today. That was also highly successful for 9th and 10th grade students to recruit them, take more AP classes. Really, really impressed with that. And then the last thing I wanted to mention, what Ms. Arthro said, Ms. Erin Wall has been running this multi-district student summit now for several years. They actually have 16 districts coming to Penn State Greater Allegheny on Friday. And it's student-led. They're talking about everything from LGBTQ plus issues to mental health to race and social equity and gun violence and police relations. So it's a really, really big deal, and we're very proud of the work that Ms. Wall and that team has been doing. All right, I'm sorry, Ms. Boss, I need you to throw those to me out.
That's all right, shout them out, you know, all the board teachers need recognition.
I wanted to say too, thank you to all of you for, you know, doing this with me. I think like it's a lot of work, but we did it and we're gonna keep doing it. But I think that having everybody in every department all on this, like, we're on the same page, we're thinking, we know what to do, we know what we have to do, and it made me feel good knowing that like everybody gets it. Like, we all get it. So thank you.
And Jill, to just piggyback off of that, thank you, Dr. C, thank you, admin team, for coming together this week to meet with some of our board members, explain some things. Appreciate your time, you know, your transparency, your openness. We look forward to more. All right, so just wanted to recognize you.
I just want to point out something that I think might be getting overlooked. The ARP ESSER fund requirements have a 20% requirement for, evidence-based intervention to address learning costs. I went through some bill lists and some personnel documents, and I can only count for about $400,000 spent. That number should be 2.8 million. The board in 2021, looks like they allocated, 3 million for opportunity camp. And I assume that was to address this. So I just want to make sure the board is aware of this requirement. From what I can tell as a member of the public, we're falling pretty short. So I think you should look into, what we've done to meet that evidence-based requirement.
I'm happy to talk about that.
say, I-
If anybody wants to throw that out there, so there is a 20%, there's actually, so there's a 20% and then there's a 7% set aside. We could talk about us all day long, there's a 5%, within the 7% set aside, 5% of it has to be for learning loss, 1% has to be for summer learning, and 1% has to be for after school. So we actually allocated 4.5 million, that's 3 years worth of opportunity camp in the first application, but then all of the curricular supplemental resources that we've put in, which is approximately another 2 million, have been evidence-based intervention strategies. And then we, with the 7%, we also allocated, most of that 5% was actually to a lot of the pupil services, mental health services that Dr. White already talked about. But we started after-school tutoring programs and built in that additional 1% of that 1.6 into opportunity camp. So definitely well aware of those set asides and happy to break those budgets down. The applications are actually on under curriculum, or at least they were when we first put them out there. But I'm happy to talk about those line by line all day, every day, because without that 14 million from ESSER 3, 7 million from ESSER 2, and 1.4 million from ESSER 1, we would not have survived COVID and the pandemic. And we are happy and proud of the way that we've allocated those funds.
So for your after school tutoring, how did you determine what school to put that?
So-
Edgewood did not.
Right.
But I think, Wilkins and maybe Charter Creek did, so as we see the funding being cut, how are we gonna fill that gap of tutors or children to get that extra support?
Yeah.
How that would work?
Absolutely. So there are still educators that submit their timesheets to me every week, and I sign off on them. So we actually put out the call, every principal in all 5 buildings put out the call to their educators for after-school tutoring, and those that received teachers that wanted to come tutor. So like Ms. Siska, Ms. King, who were here earlier tonight, tutored at the high school. Any educator that wanted to stay for tutoring and run a program was paid out of that 1% after school, and then some were additionally paid out of ESSER 3 once the 1% was dried up. Now we're using the Title IV funds for that though. So in terms of continuation, what we've done is reallocated that 1% back into that Title IV, which was the 220,000 that we showed earlier, so that we could continue our after-school programming, our after-school tutoring through the Title IV funds. What we need, and Dr. Stagna actually spoke to this last month and has mentioned it a couple of times, is I need more educators to volunteer, but to give up their time for after-school tutoring, which is really hard. I mean, they're already working their tails off. They're the hardest working people in the state of Pennsylvania, in my opinion. And to ask them to do more is challenging, but in order to run after-school tutoring, we need our educators to be a part. We do have a partnership with Oasis Tutoring that comes in during the day into our elementary schools, including into Edgewood, Wilkins, and Turtle Creek, that we're really, really proud of. And so we are definitively trying everything that we can to ensure that we're still doing after-school tutoring.
And to take the point to shout out Bree Boyd, because when I met with the Black Student Union and the high school officers, and Bree was there for student council, they asked me, we would love to tutor younger students. And so they started now, we sent a group of high school kids to the middle school to do after-school tutoring, and it's been a hit. Those kids look up to them, like you have to almost see it to feel it. And the high school kids just have been great. How many now have we been saying?
They started last week with 2. It was 3, and now today, now it's 4, it was 4 that reported.
4 students from the high school, but 15 students
16 was
started
remote,
staying.
showed up last Thursday, because I heard.
They wouldn't have anybody there tutoring. So
One of the principals at Dixon reported that several moms called, I guess Friday when there was no tutoring and Monday, asking were the students coming back because their kids had built connections with the high schoolers. So they look forward to them being there.
Yes, great. Yeah. And on that BSU.
Anyone online?
Okay.
No,
No questions online?
no. Mr. Flanagan, good evening.
Good evening. I was pleased, even though I didn't hear all of it, hear the healthy discussion on concerning public comments. And I do hope that it does get added in the beginning and the end as well. There's no, in my opinion, is censorship to try and limit the number of limit speaking because you don't want to hear the negative comments. As I've said before, that's just part of the territory and being part of public position, political position. And so with the discussion that took place, hopefully this will put aside the idea of censorship, limiting public speaking and the number of speakers by removing it from the end. For me, another example about censorship is the meetings. This developmental meeting is online on the website. You can go on and see it. But the first one isn't there. And coincidentally enough, that was the most controversial one. We had a parent in the middle of the floor with a sign, "Why can't I speak?" You had me as a board member speaking on public comments and limiting public speakers. How is it that that's not there? The one that you did previous to this, the two previous this is on there, you don't see it. But the first one with these issues are not there. And does that speak to the process that my involvement goes back to the 90s, being able to go on the website and see any and all meetings. I think right now you can go back to 2016 on the website and you can see meetings. So how is it that this one, the first developmental meeting, does not get on the board, on the website? And public doesn't have access to it. And I feel because of the issues that were being spoken, somebody doesn't want it up there. We got professional people who put these things up here every month. And now all of a sudden, one doesn't get up there. And for me, that speaks to, we have an environment where certain administrators' integrity can be challenged. But they find it challenging to exercise their integrity. Again, you as a board should have been notified, we're not going to put this particular meeting up, or if there was a problem, should have been notified that this is why it's not up there. And I've been waiting patiently for 2 months since I did not see it up there, waiting to see maybe there was some discrepancy. But lo and behold, it's still not there. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know, I can comment on the development committees. We don't put them on YouTube at all. All the board meetings are on there. I went and double checked just to be sure. And only the official board meetings are currently on the YouTube channel.
Thanks, John.
But they're being recorded.
Well, he asked me right before this meeting, do you record these? And I just said, I didn't know what the answer was right there, so I just said, well, you probably should.
Yeah, and I don't
That
think there
that
is
was
that.
at 6:05.
I'm
That's
not
all
sure
right.
we recorded the first one.
No,
Like, cause I think it was the first one.
No.
Honestly, like
He texted me at 6:05 and I just said, just do it to be safe.
yeah, so that is something that if you guys did want on the website, as far as these committee meetings right now, none of them are on there.
people about that, especially Dr. Townsend not here and she might wanna know.
Was she online? She was not.
No, she's not.
I mean, they could go on.
Thanks, not at all.
I'm thinking like the.
We have 11 right now. Well,
Well,
I was gonna say that 11, I seen you and then Brian in there.
Send her as well.
Again, to lower the suspicion and the integrity of this board. I'm not gonna be challenged every week that I don't have integrity or this board doesn't have integrity, so it's important that we do.
So this one's recorded, so you can post this, you can YouTube this, and that'll be the first thing, we'll just start from this point, Ms. Lyons.
And thank you very much, because every week we are challenged about our integrity, and I think each and every one of us have it. We're not hiding anything, so yes, they need to be reported.
Might not do it, we might.
Oh, we are very.
I like to say that
It's not
three of us
wise.
couldn't fix the thermostat. Brian and Danny are never allowed to leave.
7 degrees if I counted correctly.
All right. That being said, more comments. We will conclude the March 6th developmental committee meeting, all right?